Hi, my name is Greg Kimball, and you are listening to the Final Percent Podcast. And today I have a bunch of guests with me because we're actually talking about podcasts. We're talking about the idea of getting your message out there. We're talking about the idea of starting. We're talking about philosophies and the intricacies of what it takes to take on anything that is new. We had ideas like it's not difficult, it's just a little different because we have technology, we have interviewing, we have different styles, different tones. We have so many different things that happen when you go into podcasts. People go, where do I start? How do I start? Why do I start? So we have a group together where we just took them through 51 different slides on how to start your podcast, from interviewing to technology, asking questions, doing different things like that. And so we are going to talk about, what does it take to start? Why are some of these people starting? And what's going to happen that's really exciting is some of the people that were on the live training, you're going to be able to have a kind of a second act or the sequel or episode 2, however you want to talk about it, because you're going to hear from them briefly now. But we're actually going to do an episode where I interview them and we really talk about something important to them and what their drive is and their mission. And then for you to hear how all of it ends and how it all comes to fruition, we're going to have launched their podcast, and then you're going to have to go from here over to their newly started and published podcast to hear how everything ends, because this is what we're doing. We're starting, we're locking arms, we're having a debate. And at the end, my last slide that I said is, should we just do a live podcast right now? And so everyone kind of said, Brigham actually immediately was like, yes. He's a kind of a lead the charge kind of guy. So we're going to actually have him lead the charge again. And what I want you to do is talk a little bit about whether it's some of your fears, what you're going to talk about, the power of starting. When did you wish you would have started? I'm going to give you the floor, Brigham. Why don't you talk a little bit about podcasting, starting, whatever's on your mind and heart? You let me know what's going on.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. Man, one of the things that I loved about this training, first, thank you so much for all the energy and preparation you put into it, was Absolutely. That when we have something that we are inherently kind of scared about, but we know we want to do it, it doesn't serve us to not put ourselves out there. This is my daughter, Trixie. This is her first podcast as well, which is awesome. Say hi, Trixie. Hi. So we're doing something new. And one of the things that Greg actually asked me to do this last week was to read a book that was called The Mountain Is You. And I love that book, by the way. It was Brianna Weiss. And while I was in that, there's this idea of familiarity and the importance of taking anything that is unfamiliar that you're interested in and saying, what do I need to do to make this not just something that I understand at a basic level, but to become so familiar with it that it's like second nature. Mm-hmm. The basic premise of that book is all about self-sabotage and how to avoid it. But that was one of the principles that resonated with me. When we can say, hey, it doesn't matter what the challenge we're focused on right now, but if we can actually get ourselves out there and be willing to open up, be willing to take that next step. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's an imperfect step. We took that next step. Trixie, what's something that's hard that you just barely started? Tell me about how you started doing these cartwheels. This is something that is really impressive. So she's been in gymnastics for about a month now, right?
No.
Was it 2 now? 2 months. Oh, so sorry, 2 months. So she's been in gymnastics for 2 months now. And tell me a little bit about doing a cartwheel.
When you do a cartwheel, you want to start facing one direction. Then when you do it, then you land and you face the other direction.
Wow. So when she first started, she just kind of emulated her teacher and she started doing it. But now you can actually see how beautiful her her posture has been getting, and she's been getting more and more confident. So when you're doing new things, do you feel like you're getting more confident? Yeah. How did you get so confident about doing cartwheels? Did you only do it once and you're done?
No.
No, you don't just do it once. How many times do you do it? You practice it a couple times a day?
No, like 100.
Did you hear that? I'm not exaggerating. She literally will do this all day. So for the last couple months, she's been doing it like 50 to 100 times every single day. Show them one. Okay, okay.
Now we got to see it.
Now you got to see it. Yep. And when and when she started, guys, when she started, it was really hard for her to even have her feet go up over her. And in 2 months, she went from not being able to do that at all to being very proficient at it. And we don't have to be perfect to start, but we have to start to work towards perfection. Yeah. And I hope this was an insightful, helpful idea. But
I love that. I think one of the things that needs to just get said is, why can't we just keep that amount of insight all the time? Because you said, well, you just did it once, right? And she laughed at you like, once. What are you? Oh, you did it a couple times? No, like 100. And then, like, as adults, we're over here. You're like, wait, you're telling me I might have to do 100 episodes? Yeah, you might have to get on 100 stages, do 100 episodes, knock on 100 doors, make 100 calls, whatever it is. So I think that was better training than everything I just did, because that right there, it's so succinctly helps everybody understand the power of consistency, the power of trying, the power of starting. All right, someone else raised their hand that wants to talk a little bit about why you're starting, obstacles, different things that are going on, and everyone is going to talk on this call, just to be very clear. Okay, Erica.
All right, let me lower my hand here. So yeah, as soon as you said we're gonna do a podcast, my first reaction was like, I need headphones. I need my nephews are yelling in the background. There's a lot of things I need to filter out. Like, we need to have this not be so like on the spot. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's not how it actually works, right? You get and you just have to start. I've been having ideas about having podcasts because of like who I am as an aunt. I have 2 nephews that I live with, and because of who I am in the community and what I'm learning in real estate and business and finances, we have some really great conversations. And I'd like to think that they have a unique perspective, being that I'm their aunt, right? They're talking about taxes and paying rent and being property owners and real estate and just things that I don't think 10 and 11-year-olds talk about.
It's probably true.
Yeah. And my nephews talked about having like a YouTube channel, and I've never had any interest, right, of like being someone who broadcasts my opinion. But I realized recently, like, that's the access to, like you were saying, changing the world, is like giving people a little bit of our story and sharing and getting out there. So yeah, this past week was actually my first introduction to our community that I led. I threw a couple on the calendar for the rest of the month, and that scared the crap out of me. But I said I was going to do it back in September. Right. And then October happened, November happened, and I wasn't getting it. I wasn't doing it. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to schedule it. And then whoever shows up. And then whatever happens. And I think for me, that's the best way to do anything. Yeah.
That's
go for it and then
and that's the thing. And the funny thing is your first intro that you were doing, it probably was way different than you thought it would be. And that's the thing. Your first episode is going to be like, none of you thought you were going to be on a podcast today. Like, your first episode was way different. And so that's the thing. You really just got to put your foot out there. You got to take the step. And if you're around the right people, you really can't make a bad step. And I think that's one of the things, especially with the Renatos community, that I love so much, is you take one step and you're always stepping into love. And that's one thing that I love so much. And that's why, when I had Owen put this at the very end of the podcast, I'm like, should we do one right now? He's just like, do you think they're gonna want to? I'm like, I don't know, but like they're gonna. And so that's so good. All right, who else wants to put their hand up first? All right, Keith, break it down for me, big guy.
It's really interesting. I've been finding myself surrounded by higher and higher levels of people for engagement and wanting to do bigger and bigger things. And my passion of late, in addition to the real estate, and I find myself helping people for a living. This is a strange thing, but didn't intend for it to be that way, but it has. And talking about being able to end homelessness and go from homelessness to home ownership and help veterans in that. I have people coming to me at these meetings and saying, how can we get involved? How can we make things going? The conversations now are having to be had at levels with, council people and things like that. And for me, I might get to do one of these in the number of heartbeats I have left, but what I'd love to do is to be able to have other people come on with their ideas and how can we build this into a way that makes a difference. And what shamed me into this is my oldest son and my 6-year-old granddaughter. My 6-year-old granddaughter was just doing a little YouTube video of how to make this Halloween scary float to drink. And she goes, don't remember to hit like and ring the bell. And there was no bell there, but this is what she knows, right? Because she's brought up in this generation. And my oldest, he shoots videos of just anything. He runs a software business. He did one little video yesterday that, and he called it the intractable will of a 2-year-old. And it was my 2-year-old grandson wanted his juice. His juice was sitting on the counter within reach. And he's like, he goes, go get your juice. He goes, no, mommy get it. And he's like, mommy's not going to get you. Go get your juice. No, mommy get it. And he's like going into a full-blown meltdown. So my son goes over, gets the juice, puts it in his hand by him, and gives it to his wife and puts it in. She puts it in his hand, and he takes it, brings it back over to the table, puts it down, and goes, no, mommy do it. So he posts this thing just on Instagram, just a little quick thing, 1.7 million views by the next morning. And there is power in telling a story that moves people to action. And I think, I'm not swinging hammers anymore. I'm not building the orphanages physically anymore. But what if I can have a conversation with somebody who's doing something great and that gets heard by other people that are doing something great? That's why.
Yeah. That's so good, Keith. Yeah. And I think, well, number one, that's, I have a 2-year-old right now, and that makes me feel good that what I go through every day is not an isolated incident. So that made me feel good, because man, the meltdowns are real. But yeah,
you should watch it. It's hysterical. I'm
gonna look it up. And I think that's the thing with the, homelessness to home ownership is like, you have to start to tell that story. You have to start to think that idea is possible. And so many of these ideas that we have inside of us, they stay inside of us. And, I actually was in not the first conference that I spoke at, but the first conference that I actually put on. It was the TFP conference. We had like 300 people there, and it was a pretty cool conference. And Kayla was pregnant. And so I gave a speech on this idea. I said, so many of you have things inside of you. You have ideas inside of you, actions inside of you. You have businesses inside of you. So in a way, if they're inside of you and they want out, like you're meant to do something with these. They want out. So that means all of you are pregnant with little knowledge babies.
Well,
But,
and it's something even bigger than that, Craig.
well,
Is
no,
that
here, one thing,
no,
Keith,
go ahead, go.
yeah, let me finish
Yep.
this. Because after we were sitting there and I realized I'm in a room with 300 people and they have this business, this business, this business is struggling, this marriage, all of these things. And so they have all this life that they have inside of them that they want out. Okay, then I'm looking at and I changed my entire speech when this happened. I looked over at Kayla and she was 8.5 months pregnant. And I said, well, she's got a real baby inside of her. And then it just dawned on me. I went, oh my God, because if that real baby inside of her is going to get out, what does she have to go through? Labor. Everyone has these hopes and dreams and wishes and things inside of them, but they're not willing to go through labor. So the knowledge baby, the thought baby never comes out into the world. Why? Because they won't go through labor. And that's the big thing is our starting this conversation, you guys doing your own messages and your own podcasts, you guys taking that first crucial step is getting these things out into the world. And it's going to let other people have the courage to go through the labor to get it out of them and into the world. And that's what we're here to do. And that's why it's so exciting when I listen to these ideas and I hear things like homelessness to home ownership. So many people would not even say that out loud because they're like, that is such a big job. That is such a big idea. What has to happen for that phrase to be true? A lot of labor. Labor in us, labor in equipping, labor for the person, labor in opportunity. There's so much that has to happen. So it sounds like hard work. So we're like, I'm gonna pick my battles. That one's too big. But no, it's not. And so Keith starts the idea and he starts to give people the roadmap and the idea. And he said, hey, maybe I see one, maybe he sees 100. But the thing is because he started, maybe the world sees the eradication of homelessness. What if that's what happens? That's why we're here. All right, let's keep moving on because we're already 2 hours into this. Who wants it? We got 3 left. Who's raising their hand? All right, Karen.
Okay. Well, thanks, guys. I guess
course.
the reason why I would say that I wanted to get into podcasts or start a podcast is, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir to you guys, but we're all, real estate investors or financial gurus of some sort, right? And my kids who are 29 and 21 say that's super boring to listen to. Like they don't want to hear it at all, And so I can talk to people who want to hear about it, but like you, Greg, today you made something kind of boring, exciting, and you have energy, you bring it to it, right?
Yep.
So that's the intent, but as Brigham and Trixie demonstrated so perfectly, it's all about the reps, right? That's what it's going to do. It's going to be like going to the gym the first time and just doing it over until going to the gym isn't a big deal anymore. And then you just take that next step. So for me, that's what it is learning to speak in front of people and just doing it. And then.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. One of the biggest things we can do is remember to bring the energy. Yeah. And so many people just don't, they get mundane. And that's the other thing, especially, with me being a professional speaker, like my company's called The Final Percent. How many times do you think I have told that story? I mean, it's absolutely in the thousands, but every single time I tell it, there's energy behind it. And we have to remember, just because it's the 1000th time that we've said it, doesn't mean that it's not the first time someone else is listening. So you got to remember. Yeah. Remember. And trust me, if we could get young people to actually care about the financial, education and literacy and raise their financial, prowess, they're gonna have a whole lot more energy 10 years into this thing, and they're gonna get way more excited that we decided to bring some energy to the financial frustration that this country is going through. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is how do we bring the energy into this? And if not you, then who? If you had the idea, like, I'm so glad that, like, you said yes, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna learn. And as you're taking the steps to move things forward, keep leaning on us, and reach out, and let us help you bring your energy into that. Because you're right, that is probably the biggest thing, is something a little boring. How do you put that energy behind so people can get to the end of it?
Yeah, and want to learn, and then it lands, and then it
Yes.
they get it, and then they take
Yep.
it with them. So that's
Yeah.
how we
Yeah.
change the financial illiteracy, right? That's how that'll become a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and I mean, look at, like, your energy, and you smiling and laughing about this thing, that keeps people engaged. Because it's just like, yeah, we are going through this. Like, someone's got to fight this fight. Why not us? Who are we waiting on? If we already know there's a problem, who are we waiting on? So this isn't a religious thing, but I heard this on one of my infinite scroll things that happened earlier today that I just loved. Someone said, well, if God is real, then why is there so much pain and suffering in the world?
Yeah.
And so the person said, okay, well, I'm taking that means you don't believe in God. And they're like, no, because if God was real, why would there be so much pain and suffering? And he said, okay, so you think that if God was real and there's pain and suffering in the world, then he should do something about it, right? And they said, yeah, exactly. And he goes, okay, well, if you don't believe in God and there's so much pain and suffering in the world, whose job is it to help out? And they went, oh.
Yeah. Like, oh,
So if we recognize a problem, we need to do something about it. And we've got to end this financial frustration that's happening. I completely agree with you.
absolutely.
All right. Between Jerry and Amy, who's going to go? We'll go ladies first. Amy, you've got this. Jerry actually, he just texted me. He said, I got something so powerful, I'm going to bring the house down. You got to let me end this thing. I'm going the final percent. So we're going to let him do that. Amy, why don't you go ahead and talk to us a little bit?
That sounds awesome. Thanks, Greg. I'm excited to hear what Jerry's got to say. But along the lines of starting and the things that we need to start, I have found myself much earlier in my life than I thought I would, being in a space where I'm the light, I'm the one that has the knowledge, and I get to bring that. I'm in the teeny tiny rural town with 300 people. And so, that the mentality that comes along with that kind of life and that kind of generational upbringing creates a little bit of resistance to outside ideas. And
True.
So not only do I get to now essentially start our Adonis community up here and start to get that out, I also get to rebuild the network that I had from where I left. I left Vegas. So I had, my community there and a whole bunch of people that I didn't even know there.
Yeah.
And so now with coming up
there
here,
are actually more than 300 people in Vegas. I do know that.
Yes, absolutely. And so now being here and other instances and circumstances that have come up, I am now forced to rapidly recreate my network, to reach out and make sure that I can help my immediate family here keep a roof over their head. And so I'm having to put in those reps, like Trixie was doing with her cartwheels, and forcing myself to become, what did you say earlier, making the unfamiliar familiar, and putting myself out there and making myself the familiar, and making me the face of, hey, if you have, I'm a person who wants to help maintain home ownership, kind of like Keith's got going on. I fully support that and maintain it and make it possible for other people. And so by doing what I'm doing now with my family to maintain that, I'm creating that network to put it out into the community. Yeah. This is all just coming together all at once in my brain. Yeah. And it's nice to be able to do that, and terrifying at the same time. And then, but by putting the community together, I don't have kids that I get to pour into every day, all of this information that I'm learning. And so by pulling the community together, other people, I can pour out into those other people, and then they can take it back to their family, or they can continue it on, you know, the ripple effect. And so it's been a really challenging opportunity, and one that I am absolutely trepidatious about getting going. But I also know that right now, you know, like you said, everyone has a story. The world needs to hear what I have to say, and I'm the only one who can say it the way that I can. And so I get to keep going and pushing that out there to make it, to get it out. And so I don't know if a podcast is the way to do that at this point, but I'm definitely intrigued in getting at least being comfortable with sharing it.
Well, I guarantee you, number one, your voice is absolutely needed and necessary. And then I think the other thing, one of the superpowers, kind of going back to our idea of bridges, I think you can bridge the big town into the small town, which has been done. But one of the things that you might be not realizing how much I think really is needed is bridging the small town into the big town. The small town with those generational relationships and the close-knitness and the belief and the love and the familial bonds being in that bigger stage, you know, bridging big town and small town and small town and big town to where they can use what makes each of them great. You are uniquely qualified to bring to the stage. And because, you know, you're always such a great, you know, energy every time you show up. And you're a great, we just talked about energy. You're great energy. And if anybody argues us on that, they will see the not great part of my energy, because I will come after that. So just understand, like, you bring such a special thing to the table, and it really is needed and necessary. So instead of even leaving the door open to say that you maybe podcast is, maybe it's not, no, your voice is needed and necessary, and we're just gonna go ahead and shut that door, and we're just gonna keep we're gonna keep you in our little podcast land. But you know, you've always, you know, the great thing about every single person on this call that I think we can all say is, when we enter a room, we are thermostats, not thermometers. Because if we show up, we raise the temperature. We make it different than it was before. When we walk into a room, we don't even actually have to say anything, but our energy is felt. There's energy again. Imagine if that energy decides to talk. So your guys' story is way more powerful and needed and necessary than I think you realize. And I think that because I came from a really, like, my town when I was growing up, Centennial, Wyoming, 100 people. Now, you know, 38 years later, they've made it to 271 people. So I know the small town mentality, and I think that the bigness of things, the grandiose, the comparative reality, it's cool, don't get me wrong, like, I like stuff like that too, but we really have missed the small town. So bringing the small town values into the big time business, I think, is a catalyst of change for an exponential shift for what's possible on many different levels. So don't discount both of your experiences, because I think they're going to collide, and you're going to see a chain reaction where you're going to be like, this is what I was doing this whole time. It was all for a reason.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. All right, Jerry, you bring us home, man.
All right.
Big
As Nancy Rose says, I'll just wrap it all in a hug.
Yeah, there we go.
But today was off the charts. I resonated with everybody on here, and you touched me in some way, and a lot of the things that I was on here for and looking for. like Keith, we were down in Cancun at the Leaders Retreat. I have a brand called Vet to Investor. I'm looking to bring homes to veterans. You know, and more so like, you know, the older ones that, you know, and I'll just go as a male, the wife has passed away, the kids all live all over, you know what I mean? He doesn't need a big house, he just needs somewhere to live, you know, and working that way. So it's similar to what Keith, we had a great conversation down in Cancun with that, you know, Karen and bringing out the financial literacy and stuff we have. My kids, when I started talking about this stuff, they're like, what are you talking about? And then when they, you know, gets them intrigued, they're like, that's really good. We didn't learn that in school. How can I, did you learn that in school? Because I'm old, you know, compared to them, I'm the old man. And they're like, I'm like, no, I learned it now. I wish I learned it back in school when I went. And you know, well, Amy, I mean, you know, we do a lot of karaoke, and we miss a lot there. But you know, just bringing all this awareness, and believe it or not, you know, back before nationals, there, what, you know, if anyone's on with Scott and his impacts, you know, you got the Jerrys, Jerry Morey, Jerry Ruffin, I'm Jerry, you know, all Jerrys. The three of us were going to do a podcast or a show, and we could never figure out how to get it off the ground.
Mm.
And it was all about not just, you know, financially, but also, you know, health. You know, you still got to have your health in there too, how to bring it all together, health and wealth. That's what we're going to talk about. And we couldn't get it off the ground. We didn't know how to work any of the stuff. Like you said, Riverside was one of the kids. We spent most of the hour we wanted to get together to put the show together, how to figure that out. We got nothing accomplished. And then it kind of fell aside, and you know, everyone's doing their own thing now. So just, you know, everyone's story and everything. I mean, we could really blow this up with everybody's story. Like you said, you know, you're going to put us on your podcast, which is going to reach out and cross-pollinate. You know,
yes,
everyone out there, we could get this out to the whole nation and the whole world on everything we do, and it's just incredible. Thank you very much. I mean, you opened my eyes a lot, and everybody else, you know, I think I know everybody here but Karen. I think I've met everybody over, you know, and everything. So,
well,
great.
You know, I think one of the things that, you know, Jerry just touched on, that again, I touched on at the beginning of the training, that is so much more important than anybody realizes, is you have to be mindful of easy. And when he said, you know, yeah, we got Riverside's a great program, but if you're new to cameras and programs and all of the things and the syncing, it's also a jigsaw puzzle. Like, here's this 4,000 piece jigsaw puzzle. I just need you to put it together in 30 minutes. What? I'm not doing that.
I'm a technical guy, so I mean, I thought, I could probably figure it out.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, because you have sample rates, you have frame rate, you have all these different things. And, you know, if you want to learn guitar, make it accessible. If you want to be, you have to, you know, one of the things I talk a lot about when I'm coaching people is design your environment. So when I had to go through my health transformation, you know, even though we had just spent a bunch of money at the grocery store, I probably threw away $250 worth of snacks. So I had to get them out of my house. Because you have never seen someone snack the way that I can. And I don't know what it is about Wheat Thins, but like, I can crush like 6 boxes of Wheat Thins. Like, but when you were little, your mom tried to give you Wheat Thins, and you're like, ugh. But now you're like, oh yeah, I need some Wheat Thins. When did that happen? Like, that's when you realize like you're finally an adult. Like, they should just do that. Like the age of drinking is just now, instead of 21, it's like, do you like Wheat Thins? No, I don't. Yeah, you're not old enough to drink. Sorry. But you got to make it easy. So design your environment to make it easy to lose the weight, make it easy to take the classes, make it easy to interact with people, make it easy to interact with you, you know. And that's another thing, you know, are you easy to do business with? Are you easy to talk to? Are you easy to hang out with? And you start asking these questions, you're like, oh, that's why people don't hang out with me. I'm a complicated fellow. Stop being so complicated. You got to be easy, and you got to make it easy. And you know, the number one thing that people pay for is easy. You know, and at the end of the day, people want it to be an easy transaction. They want it to be a smooth transaction. And so when we can identify where are we making our life more complicated, where are we making our customers' life more complicated, where are we making our spouse's life more complicated, where are we making our life complicated? Like, for instance, I'm telling you guys, another thing, you know, I can eat, maybe not on Bob Snyder level, because that legit is a different planet, but I can eat a lot of ice cream. But I've actually hung out with Bob a lot, and I've seen him eat ice cream. Like, those are not myths. Like, those are facts. Like, that man actually eats that much ice cream. It is amazing. But if I have ice cream in my freezer, that means I try to get it out of my freezer as fast as possible by putting it in my face. Because that's one thing I can't throw away. I'm not throwing away ice cream. It's perfectly good ice cream. Besides, I don't want it to melt in the trash. It needs to be melting in my stomach. So I have to design my environment to where it's not in my fridge. So now, because I love ice cream, we have a rule. Every Sunday, my wife, myself, and my 2-year-old, we go to Sweets, which is a ice cream shop in the middle of Erie, Colorado, and I buy 1 scoop, not 2, because I would eat it, but I buy 1 scoop, and that's my ice cream. Because if I don't design it and I don't build these parameters, I'm not going to do it. So that's why, even if you're not going to put out the podcast, what I would tell you guys is record the podcast. Literally start your phone on the video, play and if you don't know what your podcast is called, just say, hey, this is Erica's podcast. This is Brigham's podcast. This is Karen's podcast. And then just talk about some stuff. And then when you're done, one of 2 things is going to happen. First one, you're going to be like, that's pretty good. I think people need to hear this. Or the other one is, I'm glad I don't have to put that out. Either way, just do another one. I can tell you when I started, like, again, I have to find these videos. I've been looking for them for everyone that was in the speaking class. I need to find my first few speeches that I did so that you guys can understand you're already way better than where I started, like by a lot. So if you guys think I'm even kind of good at speaking, I promise you guys can be better. So trust me, it's all good, because when you're like, you guys, and not only is that, like, I'm in this like Hugo Boss like track jumpsuit with and it's like the jacket's too big, and I've got like a hat on, like I'm like a really bad basketball coach, and then I get up there and you have zero idea what I'm talking about. But boy, I did it for like 2.5 hours. So yeah, no, I said wow too, Erica. Yeah, when I was done and I watched it, I'm like, why did I film this? Why? What? Who? Why did I think it was a good idea to document this? Well, now it makes sense. But I'm telling you, I'm excited to be working with you guys. And you know, one of the big takeaways is, you know, find where, you know, going back to that, I think it was Staples, that Staples commercial, find where you can press the easy button for people. And that's what I did when I was talking to Bob, and he said, you know, we want you to be able to contribute to the community. What would you offer? And I said, you know, people keep getting told to talk to more people, but they don't know how to have the conversation. People want to get on a podcast, but they don't know how to launch a podcast. So I just press the easy button. Here's how you have a conversation. Here's how you do a podcast. So use us as a resource. And if you have questions, I'm really liberal with my time, and I just want to see you guys win, and I want to see you guys succeed. And if we end up doing a series of podcasts together, just know I've got your back. I want to see you win. And as often as I can press the easy button for you to make your life a little easier, because I already did all the hard stuff, I want to do that. And trust me, I did a lot of the hard stuff. sometimes repeatedly, to where somebody had to come like punch me in the dome and be like, bro, like at some point you got to stop. You got to go this way. So I want to help you not make those same mistakes. I want to press the easy button. And then as you guys are going out there on your podcast, as you're coaching, as you're helping people out, literally as people are looking at you and they're talking to you and you're talking to them, just have this constant question running through your mind. Where can I press the easy button for this person? Is there an introduction that I can make? Is there, can or should they be on my podcast? Can I be on theirs? Can I come invite someone? Maybe they're an aspiring, Brigham was talking to me about how, he likes being in a play. If you meet someone like him and you live close to him, say, you go talk to your significant other or your kids or your friends and say, hey, I just met this really cool person. We're going to go support them. We're going to buy a few tickets and we're just going to go watch them. That little act alone will do more for your relationship than anything else, because you want to make it easy to be a part of your life, make it easy to do business with, and then you go try to make this crazy world that we live in just a little bit easier on the other people. And we're going to find a way to win. Does that all make sense? All right. With that being said, this has been a very special edition of the Final Percent podcast. We've got incredible people on the way. I'm going to be interviewing these people, and then we are going to be coming up with some fun stories to where you have to find out what happens. It's going to be one of those like things where you're watching the episode and right when it's getting really good, you're like, man, this is so cool. And then it comes down and it says, to be continued. We're going to do that to you because, look, I want to press the easy button on their podcast so that they can experience some of my great listeners and you can experience some of my great friends. It's all about connecting the dots, building bridges, and being there for people. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the Final Percent podcast, and we will see you next time.